Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Here with me tonight are Manny Famulari and Aaron Cadieux, both co-directors of the Bridgewater Triangle documentary. Now, I've seen your documentary, and it's excellent. What made you want to create this documentary?
Yeah, I guess you should go first, since you're older than me.
That's fine. When I was growing up in East Bridgewater as a kid, I started hearing about the odd and unexplained, weird things that were happening, like Bigfoot sightings, UFO sightings, and I was into the TV show Unsolved Mysteries. So I remember going to the library in Bridgewater and seeing all these articles on this Bridgewater resident that claims he saw Bigfoot. And I says, wow, I'm only a kid. I says, wow, this is really cool. I want to find out more about this. So I remember going into the Hockomock Swamp, and I kind of got into it. And around the same time I was growing up, I was using a video camera wherever I went, skateboarding and stuff. I was filming everything. And I said, you know what? I want to make a movie on this one day. But I never did. And then around 2009, I started really saying to myself, you know what, I really want to get this going. So I remember starting to write about it, starting to research about it, and then I came across Aaron, that he was also doing the same thing. And I says, well, I can either work with him or I can either work against him. And Aaron was running his own production company. I myself had a little Sears camera. So I said, I'm going to work with him. So I started working with them, and then we became friends, and we just started combining our knowledge on the area and videography and photography and everything, and just kind of scrunched everything together, and the rest is history. We got it done. So,
I had a little bit of a different experience because I went to Fitchburg State College. I graduated from 2005. I graduated in 2005, I should say. While I was there, I did a short half-hour documentary on the Bridgewater Triangle called Inside the Bridgewater Triangle, and it was more or less just a practice film that I had done. And I gave a copy to a friend who then gave it to a friend, then all of a sudden I was getting phone calls and emails on a regular basis from people saying, how can I get a copy of this movie? And at the time, I was a stupid college kid, so I used copyrighted music, copyrighted images. I knew I could never sell it, but there was this huge interest in it. And then in the back of my mind, I said, if I'm ever more well-established with more experience running my own company, I'd like to reapproach this subject as a feature-length documentary. And then in around 2009, 2010, I started to lay the foundation to really do this. And then I started Googling around to see if anybody else was working on the same thing because I didn't want to be in competition. I wanted to be exclusive. And I came across Manny's information, and we got in contact with each other. And like he said, we decided to work together.
Excellent. Now, how long did this documentary take? From start to finish and all the work you put into it?
I guess you could say it was a decade in the making because of Inside the Bridgewater Triangle, but I started laying the foundation. I actually shot a little bit of material before I even met Manny, and that was in 2009, I think, so probably about 4 years from start to finish. The editing process took 10 months. And that's with both of us working full-time and being able to only work on it when we could.
Yeah.
Excellent. So now, a lot of these topics approached in this documentary are very personal to a lot of people. Do you have any personal experiences with the Bridgewater Triangle happenings? Have you seen some of these paranormal activities yourselves?
I myself personally have never had anything that I can't explain. Like I was saying earlier, when we were filming one of the scenes in the film, such as we were filming the Mad Trucker of Copacut Road. And it's not a paranormal experience, it's more like a kind of something that happened that was weird, but we actually had a big pickup truck appear behind us with a big rack of lights and everything, and we kind of moved out of the way. But I myself, I've never really seen anything that I can't explain or have heard of anything, so.
I'm a major skeptic when it comes to all this stuff. It takes a lot to convince me. And I walked into this project probably a 99% skeptic, walked away maybe a 96, but there was one thing that happened, and it was actually in the footage that I had shot prior to meeting Manny. It's kind of a long story, and I'll try to condense it the best I can, but we were interviewing Chris Balzano in the Freetown State Forest. It was an interview that wasn't supposed to happen. I was there filming his tour that he was giving, and then he was supposed to go do some book signings after that. He locked his keys in his car, so we were waiting for AAA. AAA took forever to get out there. We're out in the middle of the Freetown State Forest, so we took advantage of that time and set up like kind of an impromptu interview. We had a battery-operated camera light that we were using as the only light source. We were out in the middle of the pitch black, and Chris, during the interview, was talking about a location known as Anawan Rock in Rehoboth. And he was talking about how when Anawan was surrendering to Captain Benjamin Church, he presented this wampum belt to Captain Church as a symbol of the Wampanoag surrender. And since then, the belt has disappeared from public record, and nobody knows what happened to it. There's a lot of people that think it could be in England, sitting in a museum in a box somewhere, in a drawer tucked away. But Chris was saying that a lot of researchers and whatnot theorize that until the wampum belt is returned to the Wampanoags, the strange activity will continue in the Bridgewater Triangle. Now, while he was talking about this, the battery-operated light shut off, which, isn't that strange. That could happen, even though they were brand new batteries in the light. When we got everything back up and running, Chris, we get the camera back running, recording again. Chris kind of turns to his right as if, jokingly, he said, as if he's talking to a ghost, says, "We hear your message. If I could, I would return it." And right when he said that, bam, the light shut off again. It was a perfect timing, something that ghost hunting shows on all these cable networks would kill for something like that to happen. And they end up having to fake a lot of their evidence. And this was something that happened organically. And even as a skeptic, I kind of took a step back and was like, that was weird.
That's incredible. Now, do you aspire to have your program tied in with some of these ghost hunting shows someday? Is that your end goal for this documentary, or?
Well, when we were making this, not being somebody, I don't consider myself a paranormal researcher or enthusiast. I hadn't watched a lot of paranormal programming prior to doing this film, and I watched a lot of paranormal programming once we started as a lesson of what not to do. Not to speak badly of what they do, but what they do is very sensationalized. They make a lot out of nothing. They fabricate things. We took a very journalistic approach to this subject matter, and we were not trying to convince anybody that anything that comes out of the Bridgewater Triangle or is said to come out of the Bridgewater Triangle is real or is fact. We kind of just let the stories, people tell their stories, we let the experts give their testimony, and then the viewer makes their own determination as to the legitimacy of what we're saying or what these people are saying. So I don't necessarily want it tied in with everything else. I think what we've done is kind of unique to the genre. It's kind of different from anything else that's out there on the paranormal. But we do have some interest from some very high-profile cable networks for the U.S. broadcast rights. We can't say too much about it because it's not official yet, but there's a very strong possibility it could be seen on a national scale in a TV in your home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, we won't get too much into it, so you guys can have some secrecy for viewers to see this movie. But do you have any of these stories that are personally compelling to you? Which do you believe of these, of the lore of the area, do you think is most compelling to you?
I know your favorite is Bill Russo. I like Bill Russo's story, the Pukwudgie sighting, only because I've said before that the best stories come from people that have never heard of the Bridgewater Triangle compared to people that have heard of it. In his story, when he came out with it, he had never heard of it. So I think the Pukwudgie story and the Steve Sprazier and Jerry Lopes UFO, only because a lot of people say that they have seen that a lot, and some of them are my friends as well. So I believe in those stories.
Yeah, those are the two that jump out at me as well, especially that UFO encounter, because like Manny said, a lot of witnesses corroborated that same story. And the Brockton Enterprise even did an article back in 1979 basically saying, what are people seeing in the sky? The Brockton Enterprise sketch artists come up with a drawing of what people were seeing, and it looks exactly like what Steve and Jerry said that they saw, which was a large home plate-shaped object flying very low, very slow in the sky, and Steve Sprazier said it looked like 747 stacked wing to wing, so it's pretty intense.
Yeah, as a personal level, my family has connection to it as well, so just that one struck me as well, seeing the documentary, and they live in the Brockton area, so.
Yeah, there was a lot of sightings in that spring of 1979.
Definitely. Now, a lot of young filmmakers in this area as well. What advice do you have to them for young filmmakers who wish to create documentaries or perhaps even do paranormal activity themselves?
Never to give up. Never give up. Follow your dream.
Don't listen to anybody when they tell you that something is not feasible without a budget. We're not going to put the dollar figure out there, but we were able to produce a feature-length documentary with what we consider to be strong production values for much, much less than anybody thinks is possible. Now, that being said, we did have access. I mean, I do own my own video production company, so we had access to all the equipment, the expertise, the know-how, so we didn't have to outsource anything for this film other than some artist renditions and the off-screen narration, but everything else was done in-house. So that helped keep costs in line, but things like this with the digital age are possible, and it's just a matter of having that obsessive personality to get it done, because it's thousands of hours, thousands. And we're talking about a feature-length film essentially made by 3 people.
Yeah. A lot of hard work.
So are there any stories you chose to omit due to loss of credibility or perhaps loss of like relativity to the topic of breaching in the area?
Well, we couldn't include everything. If we included every Bigfoot sighting, Thunderbird sighting, Pukwudgie sighting, if we included all those, then the documentary would be like a 60-hour DVD box set that we'd still be on the first set, of showing. But, there's a lot of places like Taunton State Hospital, which we never included. It doesn't mean they're not haunted. It just means that we might have not have found enough information that we wanted to include.
Our goal was to have as many first-hand eyewitness accounts in the film as possible. Now, there are some second-hand reports that come out of it, but primarily we tried to stick to first-hand eyewitnesses. So if something is a lesser-known story of the Bridgewater Triangle, but we didn't have first-hand eyewitness accounts, we kind of didn't include it. Also, there were people that came to us with stories, and when people come to you and say, in 2000 I saw Bigfoot, in 1980 I saw a UFO, in 1978 I saw a ghost, it starts to lose its credibility when somebody is claiming to have seen every phenomenon that's ever been reported out of the Bridgewater Triangle. And like Manny said, a gentleman like Bill Russo, who has had his sighting, had never heard of the Bridgewater Triangle, and then he waited 20 years to release his story because he was afraid of ridicule. Those are the kind of stories that we were shooting for with this project.
Okay, it's an excellent documentary. I highly suggest your viewers out there watch this. When's the next viewing that people will be able to see this documentary?
April 11th, the next local one, and that's at the Alley Theater in Middleborough on Main Street. And if you can call and reserve tickets, leave your name. And we've shown it 11 times there, and out of the 11 times, 10 has been sold out. It's a great place to see it.
Yeah, it's an excellent venue.
Other than that, the next one after that is we have a big event in Dedham in April.
April 6th, actually. That's actually before the Dedham Community Theater. We're going to be showing it at before Middleborough's theater. We're going to be showing it in Dedham. And Jeff Belanger, who is a very well-known paranormal researcher and he's a writer for Ghost Adventures, he was featured in the film. He's actually going to be at that screening to take part in the Q&A meet and greet with fans. And that's on April 6th at the Dedham Community Theater, and tickets are available through our website, thebridgewatertriangledocumentary.com.
Thank you very much. Again, this is Manny Fabulari and Aaron Gajou, and they both have a very established directors for this film. I highly suggest you go check it out.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.